Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tim Golden. I'm here with my colleague, Katie Duca. We'll introduce ourselves and tell you a little bit more about what we do in just a moment. But tonight, we're here to talk about adding teacher certification to your LSNA degree. We're going to talk a little bit about how that works, as well as some of the other pathways to join our school if after learning more, you think that one of them might be a better fit for you. Finally, we want to make sure we have time for questions and what's next. And I do want to encourage you to jump into the chat at any time with your questions. Katie's going to be keeping an eye on it, and she can prod me to answer you whenever those come in. And we'll also have time at the end for those as well. So tonight we are joining you from the Office of Student Affairs. Neither of us have been in the Office of Student Affairs for quite some time, but we're still trying to make it happen. So my name is Tim Golden. I'm the Teacher Education Recruitment Coordinator for the School of Education. That means it's my job to help people find our programs and then navigate the process of joining them. And my colleague Katie's going to tell you a little bit about what she does.
Yeah, my name's Katie Duca. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. I work very closely with Tim for recruitment and admissions for all of our teacher certification programs. So you can schedule meetings directly with both of us if you have questions, but really either of us, as well as our academic advisors, can be a great resource when you figure out the right path for you in earning your teaching certification.
Yeah, and as we get closer to the close, we'll talk a little more about where we are both online and in person when the time comes. And we do encourage you, and I'll say it right now, I'll repeat it many times throughout this, to reach out to us, to connect with us anytime you have questions, anytime we can be helpful. We want to talk to prospective students. It's what we're here for. So we wanted to start with a little bit about the School of Education. In case you're not very familiar with our community, we are a unit on campus at U of M Ann Arbor, and just like everyone else, we had to make some transitions over the last 10 or so months. Our programs are typically in person and out in the field. It's sort of a hallmark of our program that we combine those experiences all the way through. We're connecting theory and practice, and all of a sudden, it became dangerous to do so. So we had to pivot to online experiences. And here you can read about Dr. Kendra Hearn's thoughts about that process. Dr. Hearn is the chair for secondary education in the School of Education, and what we wanted to make sure we did was preserve your connection with your mentor teacher and with the students that you'll be working with. And that's something a lot of thought and care and effort has gone into. And what I am proud to say is that the process that's in place now can be extended if we need it to. Now, hopefully, by the time many of you will be joining our program, we're going to be looking at a very different world. But in the event that we are not, we do have a process, we do have a program that we're proud of and that we think you will really get a lot from. Our programs are tough. They take a lot of time and effort and energy, and we want to make sure you're getting the most out of them as possible. So here we have some words from one of our interns. When you join our program, we refer to you as a teaching intern. And this is a student from our program this summer who's talking about the sort of the ability of the program to exist now. And that's something we're really, really proud of as well. Our program works very hard to make sure that we're not teaching you how to work in the classrooms of the 1950s with the demographics of the 1920s. What we want is for you to be ready to teach any student anywhere, because your professional career, it can take you all over the place. Katie and I have both taught out of the state. We also have education experience in the state. life is a beautiful journey, and we want you to be ready for wherever it's going to take you. And we also want to recommend, if you want to hear more from our students, check out the School of Education's Instagram. We do profile students on there. Students also do takeovers on the SOE Instagram. So if you are already checking us out on maybe Facebook or Twitter, there is some unique content on Instagram that you're not really going to see anywhere else. And a lot of it is student focused. So if you want to hear more from our students about what it's like to be in the School of Education community, check us out on Instagram at UMich Education.
And Tim, just one other thing that I wanted to point out that Tori is mentioning is there's been a real push in the past couple of years to refocus the curriculum that our interns are taking part in, to have a real anti-racism focus. So not only are you going to be learning a lot about that as a student in the School of Education, you'll also be learning how to teach through an anti-racist lens in the schools that you become a part of.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Katie, and that's a school-wide priority. So obviously, if you join one of our teacher certification programs, we're going to be focusing on that through the lens of the work that you'll be doing. But that's the conversation in our entire school about all of the work we do. It's where we really want to be focusing our collective efforts. And something else we wanted to introduce, because this is relatively new, is the school at Marygrove. So the University of Michigan partnered with a number of organizations, not least DPSCD, which is the Detroit Public Schools Community District, to establish a school. And it's something that we're very, very excited about. And you would have the opportunity to be a part of the work that's taking place at the School of Marygrove as someone in our program. So the goal of the school at Marygrove is not just to provide excellent education for the children of Detroit, it's also to provide specialized continuing development for you as a new educator. So not only can you conduct some of your field placement experience in the program, in the school at Marygrove, you can also be hired to begin your teaching career there and receive additional years of development specialized for the work that you're doing with excellent teachers and administrators from the district, as well as our faculty and staff. Finally, when you close your experience in the school at Marygrove, unfortunately, we don't have room for everyone to stay there. So we need to make room for the next group of people who want to participate in that continuing development. So through this partnership, Detroit Public Schools Community District has guaranteed a placement elsewhere in the district. So you get to come in, you get to grow inside the school, and then you get to take your work to the district beyond. And here we have someone at the school in Marygrove talking about what the experience is like inside the building. And the building is going to be growing every year. We're adding more and more to it. And if you join our school, it's something you'll hear a lot about because we're all really, really excited about this work. So as long as we're talking about the School of Education, we may as well talk about the rankings because they're pretty great. The School of Education, I'm sure it will not surprise you, is a top ranked school for many of our programs. We have the #2 and #4 elementary and secondary teacher programs in the country. And if you join one of our programs, I think you'll quickly see why. We work very hard to make sure that those rankings are deserved because ultimately it's the work that we do that starts that. It's the work that you do that really cements those. And that's why we want to make sure you're ready to go and be great. So at the School of Education, we have paths to certification that vary depending on what you're looking for. The first sort of fork in the road, if you are someone who is considering joining the teaching profession, is elementary versus secondary. Ultimately, you can get both someday, but to start, you have to choose one because you can't earn them concurrently. So that's why we consider it a fork. In order to continue, you kind of have to choose one direction versus the other. An elementary certification certifies you to teach grades pre-K through 6 in all subjects, and a secondary certification certifies you for grades 6 through 12 in specific subject areas. And there's a long list of those. You can see them right here. And if you think about maybe your high school history teacher, they probably taught history all day. So that's kind of a big difference between elementary and secondary education when you're imagining the work. Whichever program you choose, we have something called a professional sequence that is going to help you learn how to teach. So teaching is considered a learned skill at our school. That's not a universally held belief. So it's something that's very important to us. And when you are maybe considering other programs or looking at other places where you can learn how to do this, that might be something to sort of investigate the philosophy around that. But we consider teaching a learned skill. And the professional sequence is where we're going to teach you how to teach because we do think that's separate from knowing content. You do need to know content. You can't teach something you don't know. But knowing how to teach something, how to take it and turn it into something that helps young people grow is another skill entirely. And if you decide to pursue our elementary program, that professional sequence is 4 semesters. It always begins in a fall semester, typically the fall of someone's junior year. For our secondary program, that professional sequence is 3 semesters, always beginning in a winter semester, typically the winter of someone's junior year. You'll notice that the elementary sequence is a little longer. The reason for that is because we have to teach you how to teach more stuff. You need to know how to teach all subject areas. The secondary program, we give you a little more space to develop that expertise in your content area. We want to make sure you have that real depth of knowledge. So for instance, I was a high school history teacher. I don't speak a word of French. I couldn't do long division for $1 million. But if you want 5 bullet points on the failed invasions of Japan, those should come off the top of my head. So that's sort of a big difference between elementary and secondary. And it's why you see those differences in the professional sequence. So when we're talking about actually joining our program, you have one application that's going to provide you with a number of options. So as current students at the University of Michigan, you'll be using the cross-campus transfer application. And on that application, you're going to be presented with the option to transfer into the School of Education for your degree and your cert. We consider that fully transferring to the School of Education. You get your degree and your cert. You can remain in your home school. We would consider that another unit on campus like LSNA. You get your degree there and add certification through the School of Education. And then there's the dual degree program where you're getting degrees from your home unit and the School of Education and adding a teacher certification. Tonight, we're here to talk about option 2, remaining in your home school to earn your degree and adding teacher certification. Because I think a lot of people know you can transfer into the school. Some people know that you can get 2 degrees, but what we want to make sure people know is that you don't necessarily have to leave LSNA or another unit to add a teacher certification. So this information dense chart kind of shows you these 3 pathways in a little more detail. I'm going to start with that gray chunk on the left because that's the constant through all of this. That's our program, the professional sequence, which we were looking at a little earlier. This is something that's going to be true no matter which of those pathways you choose. You will complete our program in the same way. We don't have different requirements depending on where you're coming from. Our program isn't easier if you transfer to the School of Education. That experience will be identical. What changes are those other things based on your choice. And what we're going to focus on tonight is that maze section, where if you want to stay in LSNA, and add a teaching certificate through our program, this is what you'll need to do. You'll need to complete the requirements for your LS&A major, as well as their degree requirements, earn 100, excuse me, earn 100 LS&A credits, and then add the professional sequence requirements on top of that. That gets you a degree from LS&A. It gets you a teaching certificate from the state of Michigan, and you are a fully licensed professional educator with a degree in the content area you majored in LS&A. We'll talk a little bit more about how to get specific about building an academic plan to make sure you're meeting all of these requirements. But ultimately, this is what you're looking at. It's basically completing your LS&A degree and then adding our program on top of it. What's nice is our program's requirements can have a lot of overlap with your major requirements, assuming you're trying to teach a similar subject area. So if you're majoring in English and you want to teach English, you're going to find that that's a Venn diagram that's, it's not quite a circle, but it'll be close. If you have widely disparate interests, maybe you're majoring in anthropology and you want to teach mathematics, then we're going to want to be a little more thoughtful about how we build those requirements in. But as we'll talk about a little later, our advisors are happy to help you do that. We want to make sure that you know your options and have a plan for meeting those requirements. So here are some deets about the application. Look, we're all busy. I don't have time for full words. All right. If you have 54 credits, that's the magic number, by the fall of 2021, the time to apply for our program is by February 1st of this year. So 54 credits. That is what the university considers junior standing. Our program is a junior level admit program. That means that it doesn't really matter how long you've been here. We need you to have the credit total that makes the university consider you a junior. So if you're going to have 54 credits by fall of 2021, you don't have to have 54 before you apply. You would just need to have them before you start, so that you can add in credits from this semester. You could take spring and summer courses. You just need 54 credits by the fall of 2021. The time to apply is by February 1st. Now, the application will be open for some time after that. It closes on March 1st. But if you are in a position to have your application in by February 1st, we strongly recommend it. And over on the right side of this slide, you're going to see the application checklist. And for the cross-campus transfer application, it's relatively straightforward. We're not asking for a ton of stuff, and we do think that it's manageable to get this done by February 1st so that you can be at the front of the line for admission this fall. This checklist is available online, and basically it shows you step by step everything you need to do, where it needs to go, and when it needs to get there. And you are able to ask us questions anytime as you're navigating that process, because we want to make sure you know how to complete our application. Any conversations you have with Katie and I are non-evaluative. It's totally okay to not know something when you're talking to us, because we want to be here to provide answers for you. So those are the key numbers and dates. 54 credits by fall of 2021, application deadline of February 1st. So let's talk about all the other stuff that you can add. You can add a teacher certification to your program and LS&A. We talked a little bit about how to do that, but that's not the only thing you can add. You can also add an ESL endorsement. For those who aren't familiar, ESL is short for English as a Second Language. You can learn how to teach the best practices for English language learners or people who are receiving instruction in English as a second language, no matter what program you choose. If you're an undergrad, if you're a grad student, if you are elementary, if you're secondary, if you are a member of our programs, you're eligible for the ESL endorsement. And the reason we're excited about that is because that's not always been the case. That's new. It used to be limited to specific programs and specific degree programs. But now, if you're a member of our school and in one of our programs, you can earn an ESL endorsement. You can also earn an IB certification. So for anyone who's not familiar, IB is short for International Baccalaureate, and it's often compared to AP. That's not exactly a one-to-one comparison. AP is, it's specific coursework and things like that. IB is a whole curriculum. It's a whole way of teaching. It's a whole way of operating a school. And this certification allows you to teach in an IB school. It also allows you to sort of maybe develop IB in another school because you'll have some specific training and understanding of how IB works. IB is very popular around the world. Its popularity in the United States is growing. And depending on which of our programs you choose to participate in, you may find yourself placed at an IB school, and you'll get to see how that works and what's unique about it. But just like ESL, this is something you can opt into once you're a member of the program. It's not something you have to decide right now. They'll ask you when you are sort of starting the program if you would like to add these things, and then they'll help you build in the requirements for earning that certification, afterwards. So we have another pathway to teacher certification. If over the course of this, you have been saying, oh no, it's too late for me. I'm a junior, I'm a senior. That's something that we don't want you to worry about because you've got a great option in our one-year Master's Plus Certification program. We call it MAC, and we have these programs for elementary and for secondary, and this is a 12-month full-time graduate certification program that gets you a Master's in Education Studies and a teaching certificate. In order to join these programs, you need a bachelor's degree and some prerequisite coursework that we can help you build into your undergraduate career. So basically, if you are wondering if maybe our undergraduate program would extend your undergrad, and that's something you don't want to do, well, this might be a great option for you because in that same amount of time, you may be getting 2 degrees as well as the same certification. So the MAC programs are something that Katie, myself, the academic advisors are happy to talk to you about, happy to help you plan for. These are terrific programs. They have a unique format. And that's something that we can explain further in the future for anyone who has questions. So another thing that's open to students in our university community is the Ed minor. Its full name is Education for Empowerment, but I'll be surprised if you ever hear anyone call it that. We call it the Ed minor. And basically, this is an opportunity for people at the University of Michigan and our school to broaden your perspective on education work. If you join one of our teacher certification programs, we are going to be laser focused on developing you as a professional educator. We only have so much time, and there is a lot to learn, and we want to use all of that time to teach you how to teach. But if you want to spend more time thinking about maybe access, equity, global education, those other questions about the sort of landscape of the education world, the Ed minor could be a great option for you. It's a 15 credit minor that includes a foundation course, elective courses, a field experience component, and a capstone course that is actually more like a multimedia project. This is something that we can help you build into your plan. Even if you choose to be a part of our program, most people in the Ed minor are from other units on campus, but we do have students in our programs who are also participating in the Ed minor. So it's open to anyone who has that interest.
Okay, Tim, I'm the next slide is like a question slide. but I'm pause here because we've got some really great questions in here, and I think it's a good time to just go back and clarify a few things.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to share all of the links because I was sharing my screen here. So let me stop that for a moment and let me get onto our website real quick so that I can show everyone where to find the secondary information and give the link, the appropriate link in the chat. Okay. So I'm putting the link in the chat now, and I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here for everyone. Okay. So if you click on the link that's in the chat, it's going to take you to this undergraduate secondary teacher education page where we're prompted to already be at this overview and requirements. And if you scroll down, for one, you're going to see a few of the options, and we're going to go back to the 3 different options because there's been several questions about that as well. We've also had about 2 or 3 people interested in TIPA. So again, you can click on this teacher education preferred admit link and find out more there. And Tim, I've also been collecting names of students, some of whom are interested in TIPA that we'll follow up with tomorrow, some of whom are interested in trying to maybe even start now. So we're going to try to follow up with them tomorrow. So yes, please everyone, if you are kind of on like more of a time sensitive thing or just want specific information, just please follow it in the, include that in the chat because we'll be downloading the transcript of this and taking care of that. But here's the teacher education preferred admit program link. This again goes over the program types a little bit, but if you keep going down to seeing the requirements, this explains the actual professional sequence courses that we showed in a graphic earlier. And then continuing down here is the endorsement areas. So that list that Tim was showing that has all the content areas, if you click on any of these subject areas, we'll just do chemistry now. As I had mentioned to someone who had asked, they're all about 20 credits, and this is the list of courses. So in response to that question, do I have to be majoring in the subject? Not necessarily. If you are majoring in the subject, then it's very likely you're already completing the requirements. But let's say you are like a BCN major, or let's say you're majoring in sociology and you have room in your schedule to take 20 credits of English. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can work with these different content areas. And that's where Tim and I will be helpful, but also our academic advisors in particular can help you navigate how to fit all of this into the time frame that you're on. The only exception to that 20 credits that I had just mentioned are 2 content areas. One is integrated science. We call this one a comprehensive endorsement. You'll notice there's 36 credits required. And that's because with an integrated science endorsement, you're highly qualified to teach all of the sciences, essentially, biology, chemistry, physics, earth, space. And the other content that does that is social studies. So while you could major or have an endorsement just in history or just in political science, if you do the social studies endorsement, again, that's more credits, but then you're certified to teach economics, geography, all of the civics, physical or political science, and history. So those are options for you, and we can always talk more about them and how to fit them in. Obviously, social studies and integrated science aren't majors housed within LS&A, but still that doesn't mean that it wouldn't work for you either by transferring into the School of Ed or by adding it to your degree in LS&A. And another thing that I wanted to go back to, let me get the PowerPoint. Oh, well, as I'm on this page. So again, the same link that's in the chat, if you click on this applying tab, and all of you on this call, as Tim already mentioned, you're all U of M students, so you'll be using the cross-campus application. These are just the steps. We recommend meeting with us because you can get a better sense of which pathway is going to be the right one for you. And then if you click on the preparing the application materials, it'll be a drop down that shows you exactly what's required, how to submit everything. And again, it's a far less arduous application than your common app that you use to apply to the university. Since you're already a U of M student, a lot of the information we already have access to, and it's just accessible by this link right here. We do recommend looking over these requirements and preparing them before you submit this application or before you go into it, because it's like a homegrown system and you can't save it and go back to it like you can other applications. And again, if you have questions, we're always willing to help you with that process. Another thing I wanted to return to, let me get back to the pathways slide. So there was a few questions about this one. So the first option, I'm just going to go over it a little bit slower here. The first option is that you can apply to transfer directly into the School of Education. Now, in some cases, this could be advantageous. One of the primary differences is that if you apply to transfer straight into the School of Ed, your degree will come from the School of Ed, and obviously your certification will, no matter what. Sometimes students ask, well, what's the difference? What do I have to do? If you come straight into the School of Ed, then you only have to worry about the School of Education's requirements. If you do option 2, where you remain in your home school, and that's really the cert only piece that we were kind of focusing on this evening. If you do option 2, then you're going to be doing LSA requirements and School of Ed requirements. Now, most of them overlap. The only big differences are like LS&A has the world language requirement and the School of Ed does not. So if you're someone who's in a school that, or you haven't started your world language requirement, or you wanted to take other classes from another unit and not do that, like there's instances where that could be advantageous for you, or maybe you transferred to U of M your sophomore year and so you're just getting started on that. This is where it becomes like pretty individualized, and it's why it's good to just meet directly if you're kind of wavering between like which one's going to fit in my schedule best, which one's going to get me what I want in 4 years time, or 5 if you're currently a senior. But in terms of marketability, when you're searching for jobs, and we do have a fabulous career services team that does a lot of work with you even before the end, like they start working with even our first year students. If you're kind of wavering around that, really what principals and superintendents are looking for in making hiring decisions is your endorsement. An endorsement means the subject that you're getting certified to teach. So they want to make sure that you have that endorsement area, that you're highly qualified to teach the subject that's being posted for, and they want to know where your training is coming from, and you know what your philosophy of teaching is, and what your skill sets are, and all the wonderful things that our program is going to prepare you to do. So whether your degree came from LS&A or the School of Ed isn't necessarily going to have an impact for them, because you're going to be highly qualified to teach regardless. And in some cases, you may be thinking about, well, what about if I want to go to graduate school after? Is that going to have an impact? And, 9 times out of 10, not really. But again, there could be instances, and, we would encourage you to just talk to us about that if you have questions. And then the last option is this new option that's a dual degree. And a dual degree adds a little bit more credits, but it's not a whole lot more than what you would really be taking in if you were adding the cert to your degree, or if you were coming into the School of Ed. Especially if you're adding the cert, you're going to be getting your degree through LS&A, getting your certification through the School of Education, and perhaps with a few more credits, you might even be able to just get both degrees. So again, very much this depends on what you've taken so far, what your future goals are, even with your content areas, what's going to fit in best. Are you willing to take a spring or summer class? You might not even need to. you know, but that's what we're all here for, to help you. But we just want you to know that there's a lot of options. You don't have to be majoring in the subject. So I hope that this helps to clarify this a little bit for you. Just the only thing to keep in mind is, like, you're always going to be able to meet with School of Education advisors. You're always going to be able to have access to all of the School of Education resources. So if you decide you want to do like the adding cert and get your degree in LSA or another unit, you know, you can certainly do that, but you're still going to be able to feel like a School of Education student, because, you know, we don't distinguish. It's literally like a different code on your career of your Pathways profile, student profile, in terms of how you interact with all the faculty and all the other students. Like, it's one and the same. Like, you reap all the benefits either way, and the application itself is the exact same thing. So there's no additional things that you need to do for the application. No matter which pathway you're taking, everything remains the same. And it's quite common too that people kind of switch back and forth even after getting admitted. And so that's fine too. So maybe you say, okay, I'm going to do cert only, and you get started and you're like, you know what, I just want to do School of Ed. Like, you can make that change later on. It's not a big deal at all. Okay, now I'm going to go back to, oops. Other questions. So you can feel free to continue to put them in the chat, or if anybody wants to verbalize their question, it's that time of the evening.
Yeah, and I'm going to start with one that I see in the chat, and I'll slowly start making my way down. The first one that I see that hasn't been addressed so far is the certification only valid within the state? Great question. You are getting a Michigan teaching certificate, but that terrific career services team that Katie was talking about earlier, they can help you transfer your certificate to any other state. You can think of your teaching certificate as kind of being like your driver's license. You can transfer it to another state, and they're not going to make you take driver's ed over again. They're not going to tell you to start over. There's going to be a process for transferring it, but you will be considered like a qualified trained teacher. Our career services team will just help you navigate the process of transferring that cert. I see another question asking if you can get a degree from Ford and a teaching certificate at the same time. You can add cert in the sort of the way we've been talking about, where you're completing your degree requirements in your home unit and adding teacher certification on top of it. The option that's not available at Ford is the MDDP. That's currently a partnership only with Elson-A, but you can add cert while in a unit other than Elson-A. Let's see. For freshmen, we talked a little bit about TEPA, our Teacher Education Preferred Admit program. Katie showed you a little bit about how to find some more information about that. And we're happy to talk to you about how to join the Preferred Admit program. It is absolutely not too late. You can still participate. That program can result in guaranteed admission into our teacher certification programs. I see a question about applying as a senior and taking a 5th year. You can, but in that circumstance, we would actually recommend considering the 1-year master's plus certification program, because if you're going to be extending your timeline, we want you to get the most for that extension, and ultimately getting 2 degrees in the same amount of time is something that we are inclined to recommend almost every single time. So unless there's a specific like circumstance that would make participating in the undergraduate program a better fit for you, we'll probably recommend taking a closer look at MAC. And that's also something that we're happy to talk about. And when we get through more of these questions, we'll show you how to set up appointments with us and share our email addresses and things like that. So if you hear us keep saying to do so, we promise we will let you know how. Katie emphasized the differences between the 3 pathways a little more. and where to find the application. I believe Katie mentioned it, but I'm just gonna say it again for the sake of having it out there. The cross-campus transfer application, while it is brief, it cannot be saved. So that's the reason we have the checklist, so that you can get everything ready before you sit down, because if you have everything ready and you sit down, the whole application will take you maybe 15 minutes. If you don't, you might be there for 13 hours, which we don't want. So that's where you'll be applying to the program, and your application is going to be identical regardless of which path you choose. The only thing that'll be different is which of those options you choose from a drop-down menu. So that is something you'll see in there. Katie showed you where to find the application. Is our undergraduate program a junior level admit regardless of which option you choose? Yes, you do need that 54 credit minimum to participate in the undergraduate program, regardless of which pathway you choose. All right, some more info about TIPA. And if we have time at the close and people have more questions about TIPA, I am happy to go into further detail about that. I actually coordinate the TIPA program, so I'm always excited to talk about it. A question about when you would be hireable after graduation. This is a great question because this is something distinct about our program from a lot of others. Because our program combines the field experience with the education theory, if you look at those professional sequence charts, or where Katie pulled it up in the overview and requirements earlier, anytime you're taking education theory courses, you're also going to be getting that field experience. We do it at the same time, which is part of what makes our program pretty intensive. But because you're doing it concurrently, when you graduate, you are a fully licensed professional educator. You are hireable. You are ready to rock. So some other programs at other major state institutions, just a little bit down the road that way, you have to complete a major field experience component after the program. That is not the case here. We do it all at the same time, so you are certified at the close.
I'm sorry, Tim, I'm just going to go to the slide that shows the contact info, because I'm starting to see some students look like they, have other commitments and stuff.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you, Katie. So I'll explain this slide and then I'll jump right back into the questions, and do not hesitate to interrupt me if you have a question that you want to speak out. Basically, what Katie's going to plug into the chat are some links. These links open up our calendars. Anytime we are available, you can select a half-hour appointment by phone or Zoom. And there's also a link to do so with our academic advisors. So Katie and I are here for program questions, application questions, sort of if you want to know more about the School of Education, our pathways, the teaching profession, that's what we're here for. If you have coursework questions, maybe like really specific things about equivalency or building an academic plan, that's where our academic advisors really can flex their muscles. And so we'll have their link in there too. And if you schedule with one of us and it turns out that your questions might be better for the other, no sweat. We'll make sure you are talking to the people who have the answers for you. We'll get you connected to that information. So I'm going to move over here. There's a question about how strict the lists of endorsement area courses are and whether or not you can substitute higher level courses. Great question. Totally depends. Course equivalency is a complicated beast, and it's one of those circumstances where our academic advisors do really terrific work because those courses are not connected to you getting your degree from the University of Michigan. They're connected to your certification. So what we want to do is make sure that they can take a look at it, determine equivalency so that when you graduate, you are getting that teaching license. Is there flexibility? Can substitutions be made? Yes, we do it all the time, but we have to be very careful about it. And we want to make sure that you're talking to us before you try to plug something else in on those lists. So it totally can be done, but we do want to make sure that that's a conversation so that at the close of this, it isn't a big surprise that you're going to be sidelined while you finish those certification requirements instead of going into the profession. So let's take a look.
Tim, I was just going to clarify one thing I've been seeing come up in the chat quite a bit. You're seeing my screen again, right? The two, okay. So there's been some questions just around timelines and time commitments. And so I just wanted to show this again. So no matter which pathway that you take, again, it could be cert only, it could be dual degree, it could be coming just into School of Ed. All the programs for secondary begin in the winter term, and they all follow this professional sequence. Like, this professional sequence can't be broken up because you're building upon your knowledge and your experiences each term. And so, but you'll notice, like in that first term, I mean, I don't know if you can see it, but we'll send this out to you all after. The education classes are only 8 credits. So if you're still, let's say I always use English, like Tim uses social studies because English was my content area. If I'm pursuing English as my endorsement area, this winter term, I could still be taking English classes or maybe finishing up some LS&A requirements. My schedule is not going to be only dedicated to education courses. But I do want to emphasize that while it's only 8 credits, it might feel a little busier because if you look at the bottom of the chart where it says field work, you are going to be going out into schools 2 half days per week. So, you know, there can be a little travel time affiliated with that. A lot of students carpool and things like that. You're never going to be going to a school in isolation. That's all set up for you with our partner schools. And you actually do a rotation in that term where you get to go to 3 different schools. And then in the fall term, again, you're still only taking between 8 and 11 credits depending on your endorsement area. So you still, again, are having some time to finish up other requirements for your degree or your endorsement area. The only semester that gets pretty heavy is that final term, because that's when you're doing your full-time student teaching semester. And so you're going to come out of the secondary program having at least 3 to 4 to even potentially 5 different school experiences, which is, again, a deliberate effort that they've done with the design in order to help you become like really well-rounded and marketable to a variety of schools. And even more importantly, in some cases, it'll help you determine what kind of school you might want to consider teaching in. And often we find that, you know, the initial thought we have around like where we could see ourselves teaching, it might very well change as you're exposed to different environments. We do make an effort to try to have your positions be like in a suburban school, in an exurban school, in an independent school. Like, we have a variety of settings that we'll introduce you to. And our managing director, Kevin Hankinson, he's kind of the go-to person in answering any questions you might have around placements. But we do have a tremendous network of mentor teachers that are experts in the field that do professional development with all of our faculty and staff. It's a really like strong community. And so it's not like we're going into schools and saying, who needs an intern? Like, it's a very selective process to ensure that it's a good experience for you. Okay.
So I see a question about how elementary education works since it's not focused on a specific subject area. That's a great question. Basically, elementary does also have a list of prerequisite courses, sort of like what Katie showed earlier, where she clicked on maybe Arabic versus chemistry, and it showed a bunch of different classes. For elementary, it's more about sort of a broad base of general knowledge. Elementary educators need to know a little bit about a lot of things. That's sort of like the key difference between elementary and secondary in the prerequisites. It's that breadth of knowledge versus a depth of knowledge. And so there are prerequisites, but they are often covered by people's distributions. And while we were talking about flexibility earlier, there's more flex with the elementary requirements in some circumstances, because again, it's about general knowledge as opposed to like specific, how much do you know about post-Civil War US history? The next question I see is about recommendation letters for the cross-campus transfer application. Yes, you will need 2 recommendation letters for the cross-campus transfer application. One speaking to your ability to master content, and another speaking to your ability to connect with youth. And there's more details about both of those in the application checklist. And just for time, I'm gonna keep moving. But if you have questions about who would be a good recommender or anything like that, don't hesitate to connect with us about that. I see a question about whether or not there are School of Education courses taught in the spring and summer. No. And that is because our coursework is always connected to field experience. We never offer education theory coursework without the opportunity to connect it to practice, to go out into the field, to observe, to do. And during the spring and summer, those opportunities are not there in the same way. So the spring and summer are a great space for plugging in other coursework if you need to. If you have distributions, if you have LS&A major coursework, the spring and summer is a great place for that because you can know we will not have coursework for you then. Let's see.
Tim, the only thing I wanted to mention about that is if we briefly touched upon the optional ESL endorsement, teaching English as a second language. And if you are, and that's open to all of our teacher certification students. So whether you're doing elementary, secondary, undergrad, or master's, everyone can be a part of that. We actually expanded that due to popular demand from our students and the communities we serve. And there could be occasional spring, summer with those because there is a summer program affiliated with that experience.
Yeah, and again, that is something that you will opt into during the program. So those requirements won't come as a surprise. You'll be brought into a conversation about that when they ask you if it's something you want to join. Next, I see a question about the difference between a teaching certification and an education degree. Great question. Your certification is a separate document from your degree. So you can get a degree in education. For instance, if you transfer to the School of Education, we'll be issuing your degree, but your teacher certification is a separate document, and it actually doesn't come from the University of Michigan. It comes from the state of Michigan. What we do is make sure that you're meeting the requirements so that we can recommend you for certification, and then the state issues that teaching license to you. So they are separate documents. They come from different bodies, but what we want to do is make sure you're meeting the requirements for both. So when you graduate, you get your degree, you get your cert, and you get to go do the work. I see another question about how competitive admissions are. This is a really good question. I would describe our application process as highly selective. But competitive, this is a little semantic. Competitive isn't the word I would use because you're not trying to beat someone else out for a seat. We don't have a fixed number of seats in our cohort. We admit everyone who we think is ready to begin the program. That's why when you're looking online, you'll see like ranges and average size of a cohort. Basically, we aren't going to be putting your application next to someone else's and comparing them. It's all about you as an applicant, and you're the only person we're concerned about when we're reviewing it. So the program is highly selective. It is not easy to get into, but you are not going to be compared to anyone else during your review. I apologize if that doesn't really answer your question, but I promise it's true. Let's see.
I'm just going to jump in on this one. And we had talked a little bit the difference between like the degree versus the certification. So again, like if you're getting your degree in LSA or you're getting your degree in School of Ed, you're going to be just as marketable. It's the certification that the principals are looking for. So if they're hiring for a biology teacher, then they want to make sure that you are endorsed and certified and highly qualified to teach biology. So if you got your biology degree in LS&A and you have a biology endorsement, you'll be an attractive candidate. If you get your degree in the School of Education and you have a biology endorsement, you're going to be an attractive candidate because it's all about what you're being trained to teach. And your training is going to be the exact same. You're going to go through the exact same program, whether you're getting your degree in the School of Ed or getting it in another unit and adding that cert piece. Like your training is exactly the same. Your certificate's exactly the same.
Let's see. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not answering things that have already been answered. For general questions about letters of recommendation, we just want to emphasize that we are being as flexible as we can be with those requirements. We understand that the last 10 months have been extremely disruptive to operations at the university and to your ability maybe to connect with people in the ways that our application is normally asking you to have. So just know that consider that those guidelines, consider those like the gold standard. You know, that's the perfect letter. Now let's just figure out how close we can get you to that, and the closest you can get is perfect. And we are happy to talk more about who are the best recommenders, but just know that we're being much more flexible. If you have to reach further back than usual, that's something that that we totally understand, given the disruptions caused by COVID-19. I am going to take this opportunity just to say that I'm available to stick around for a little while if people continue to have questions. Because I do want to make sure that you get them answered. We're really excited that that you all are here and have so many questions, and I want to make sure that they get answered for you. Katie talked a little bit about time commitments.
We had a request to go back to this slide. I believe this is the slide that that was being asked. Let me. So I think if I'm picking up, the 3 pathways part is a little confusing, and I don't, I get why. It's a lot to try to like figure out when you're looking at these types of graphics. And I think that the main thing to keep in mind is that they're actually not nearly as different as they seem. And so, you know, like if you look at SOE degree versus the LSA degree, the 12 humanities, the 12 natural sciences, the 12 social sciences, those are basically the exact same thing as the distributions that LS&A has. It's just that the School of Ed does not have the world language requirement, and we're a little bit more flexible with, even though there's like 12 credits required in each, we double count things in a way that LSA does not. So for instance, like if you're majoring, let's say in biology in LS&A, then LS&A doesn't want your distribution courses for natural science to come from biology courses. But if in the School of Ed, if you're majoring in if you're majoring in biology, your natural science distribution part there, the general stuff, that's done. So no matter what, like in any of the subjects that you're majoring in, you're one of those categories is already going to get full, because if you're doing humanity, like if you want to teach a world language, your humanities is taken care of. If you want to teach English, your humanities is taken care of. If you want to teach history, your social studies is taken care of. So it's these, I find this chart personally confusing because it's just a little bit more, it makes it look a little more complicated than it really is. And the bottom line is, like, we super duper encourage you just to schedule an academic advising appointment, because they will do a whole unofficial academic plan for you, and they'll even do it in more than one way. So they'll show you, this is what it'll look like for you to do cert only. This is what it'll look like for you to do School of Ed. And then you can pick which one works best for you. they do that for all of our students, not even like they'll do it for you as a prospective student. And they can really lay it out for you to help you kind of see what's going to work. And you all are brilliant people. I'm sure you can figure it out yourselves as well, but it's just always good to kind of double check because sometimes things change and we just want to make sure everybody's on the right page.
Yeah, big shout out to the academic advisors,
Yes.
SOE MVPs,
Yes.
perennially. Katie, we do have some hands raised.
Oh, okay. Alex?
I just typed mine in the chat. I was just wondering if the gray box on the very left, it says secondary, but can that be elementary also, because wasn't that an option, or is that not an option for these three?
So elementary, it's kind of in an interesting place right now because the requirements recently changed. They used to be a lot more in depth in terms of what you had to take prior to beginning that professional sequence. So it was nearly impossible to add, like if you want, most students just transfer into the School of Education to do the elementary program. So that's why this chart isn't really relevant for elementary because there's not like cert only for elementary. Although, because the requirements have recently changed, it's something that can be explored. And we do, in fact, have someone doing a dual degree with elementary and LS&A right now. It's just the elementary program, because like as Tim mentioned earlier, you're taking a little bit of everything. It just, it doesn't really apply. This chart doesn't apply for elementary.
Okay.
But we can, but the thing is, like, if you go to, like, I was on that secondary page. Oh, wait, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Whoops. Let me get back here. And I'll put the link in here. You can get the breakdown for the elementary requirements, and they're right here. And as Tim mentioned, if you've been kind of following LSA distributions, then you're probably fulfilling the requirements for the elementary program. They're listed here, and I'll put this link in as well.
One important thing when you're looking at the elementary requirements is to make sure you're looking at which date those are applied to, because we do still have the old requirements up there. And if you're looking at those, you may feel like they don't align with what we're talking about, and that's because they don't. That the newer ones you're going to see for people like fall 2021 and later, those are the ones that you'll want to focus on.
Okay, thank you.
So we are going to have to, we are out of time. Or I'm sorry, we have got one more question here. Is it Zion? Or could you please correct me if I'm mispronouncing that?
No, it's fine. My name is Zion. I was just thinking about the Masters of Educational Studies, purely just that. And I was looking at the website and I couldn't find anything about prerequisites. And I'm a senior in my last semester. So if I needed prerequisites, I would probably want to take them now. So I just wanted to know if there was something, or are there any preferred courses for the Masters of Education, Masters of Arts in Educational Studies?
So it will depend on what you want to teach. So whether it's elementary versus secondary, and if it's secondary, what specific subject area, those choices will determine the list of courses that you'll need to work through. And our advisors can help build a plan to maybe build those into your final semesters or other times. And I'm sorry to put this right in the middle. My computer is gonna blow any second now. So if I disappear suddenly, please know how glad I am that we got to chat tonight. It was a pleasure to discuss these things with all of you.
We are going to follow up. That's why we are going to have to call it, because we need to make sure we get this chat transcript, because there's a lot of people we need to follow up with. But we can, again, if you schedule a meeting with us, we'll tell you all the requirements that you need. We can even just schedule a 10-minute Zoom, whenever works best for you. But yeah, we just thank you so much for everyone for joining us. This has been a great night, and love the enthusiasm and all the questions. And I hope you found it beneficial. And we'll hopefully see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.